He said he'd help me find love. He promised to be my wingman, my biggest supporter. But somewhere between his teasing smiles and late-night phone calls, something changed. Every time someone else got close to me, his smile disappeared. Every time I laughed with another guy, his voice went quiet. Was it jealousy? Or was it something deeper, something neither of us wanted to admit? It started the way a lot of stories like this do, with a crush, and not even a good one, just the kind that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. I was Ji-hoon, 21, awkward, and hopelessly bad at dating. I worked part-time at a cafe, went to university, and spent most of my nights scrolling through romance manhwas I could never relate to. My best friend, Min-woo, was the opposite. He was the kind of guy people noticed immediately, tall, confident, with a smile that could make professors forget why they were mad. We'd been best friends since high school. He played basketball. I took photos for the yearbook. He was chaos. I was calm. Somehow we fit. One night, while sitting at our favorite late-night tteokbokki stand, I admitted it. "I think I want a boyfriend," I said quietly, staring at the steam rising from the spicy sauce. He grinned. "About time, Ji-hoon. You're cute enough to have one. You just don't try." "I'm terrible at flirting," I muttered. "Then I'll help you." He leaned back, smirking like it was the easiest thing in the world. "I'll be your dating coach." And that's how it started. The plan was simple. He'd help me meet people, build confidence, and maybe, just maybe, I'd find someone who looked at me the way I looked at him. Yes, him. Because the cruel part of it all was this. I'd been in love with my best friend for years. The first time he tried to coach me, it was a disaster. The night was alive. Bass thrummed through the walls, laughter spilled from the balconies, and lights spun like shattered stars across the floor. It was the kind of night that made everything feel temporary. The music, the people, even the moments that would end up breaking your heart. I'd never liked parties. Too much noise, too much space to feel small in. But Min-woo insisted. "Come on," he said, tugging at my wrist as we walked up the steps to the student center. "You've been hiding behind that camera for weeks. You need to live a little." I adjusted my glasses. "I'm living fine, thanks." "Ji-hoon," he said with a mock seriousness, "tonight you're not the shy photographer. You're the main character." I rolled my eyes. I'm not sure main characters sweat this much before walking in. He laughed, and the sound, loud, easy, familiar, cut through the hum of the night. It always amazed me how effortlessly he fit into every place he walked into. People gravitated toward him. He didn't even have to try. And then there was me, quiet, small, the shadow just a step behind him. Inside, the party was chaos. Music thudded in the air. Bodies moved like waves. The smell of beer, perfume, and something electric lingered everywhere. I clutched my cup a little too tightly, already planning how to leave early without making it obvious. Min-woo looked around like he was home. He spotted people he knew, of course he did, and greeted them with that grin that could light up a room. Then he turned to me. "Okay," he said, clapping his hands once. "Lesson 1. Flirting." I blinked. "You're not serious." "Oh, I'm completely serious." He grinned. "Look, over there. That guy by the drink table. He keeps glancing this way." I followed his gaze. A guy in a denim jacket, good-looking, confident. The kind of person who could make eye contact without flinching. Definitely not my type. Mostly because I didn't think people like him even saw people like me. "Go talk to him," Min-woo said. "What? Why me?" "Because this is your training arc, my guy. I'm your coach," I groaned. "This is ridiculous." "Smile," he whispered. nudging me forward. Ask his name. I tried. I really did. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and made my way toward the guy. He turned when he saw me coming. His smile was polite, detached. "Hey," I said, hoping my voice didn't sound as nervous as I felt. I like your jacket." He raised an eyebrow. "Thanks. You're friends with Minwoo, right?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "We've known each other since high school." He chuckled, glancing over my shoulder. "He's hot." I froze. He didn't even say it like a compliment, more like an observation, a casual truth tossed into the air. Something in my chest twisted, not because I hadn't heard it before. Everyone said that about Minwoo, but because hearing it from someone I was trying to impress made me feel invisible all over again. "Yeah," I managed, my throat tight. "He gets that a lot." The guy smiled politely, already half looking elsewhere. "Cool meeting you," he said before walking away, disappearing into the crowd like I'd never been there. And then I felt a familiar warmth behind me. A hand landed casually on my shoulder. Minwoo stood there, drink in hand, eyes unreadable. But for a fraction of a second, a flicker, gone as fast as it came. His grin faltered. "Yeah," he said, his voice steady, too steady. "We're inseparable." He said it loud enough for the guy to hear, his arm slinging around my shoulders in a gesture that looked playful but felt possessive. The other guy blinked, laughed awkwardly, mumbled something about refilling his drink, and disappeared into the crowd. For a moment, Minwoo didn't move. Neither did I. The weight of his arm around me felt heavier than usual. His fingers brushed the edge of my sleeve before he finally pulled away, his tone light again. "Well, that went great." "Sure," I muttered. "If your goal was public humiliation." He grinned. "Hey, you tried. That's progress." But something in his smile didn't match his eyes. Later that night, we sat outside on the back steps, the muffled thump of the party still echoing through the walls. The night air was cooler now, the moon hazy behind the clouds. Minwoo handed me a soda. "You okay?" "Define okay." He laughed softly. "I didn't think he was your type anyway." "You don't know my type." He tilted his head. "Don't I?" I looked away. "No one does." We sat in silence for a while. The sounds of laughter, the clinking of glasses, the muffled bass, they all blurred together into white noise. Then quietly, Minwoo said he shouldn't have said that. "Said what?" "That I was hot, especially when he was talking to you." I blinked, thrown. "Why not? It's true." He frowned slightly. "Yeah, but it's disrespectful." "To who?" "To you," he said, as if it was obvious. He should have been paying attention to the person in front of him. I stared at him, unsure how to respond. There was something tight in his jaw, something careful in the way he avoided my eyes. "Minwoo," I said softly. "It doesn't matter." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe not to you. But it pissed me off." His honesty, quiet, sharp, hung in the air like static. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Inside, the music changed to something slower. A few couples drifted outside, laughing softly under the dim lights. Minwoo stood, stretching. "Come on, let's get out of here." "Now?" He nodded. "I've had enough of people who don't see what's right in front of them." The words caught me off guard. But before I could ask what he meant, he was already walking ahead. I followed him, like I always did. The campus was quiet at night. Street lights hummed softly, scattering pools of light across the pavement. We walked side by side, neither of us saying much. Then out of nowhere, Minwoo said, "You shouldn't let people treat you like you're invisible." I frowned. "I'm not invisible." He stopped walking. Then why do you act like it? His voice wasn't teasing anymore. It was low, steady, serious. I froze. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he said, turning to face me, you walk into a room and immediately decide you don't belong there. You make yourself small before anyone else even gets the chance. His words hit harder than I wanted them to. He stepped closer. You're worth more than that, Ji-hoon. The way he said my name, quietly, like it was something fragile, made my chest tighten. Minwoo, I whispered. Why do you care so much? He hesitated just for a second before saying, because someone should. The walk home was quiet after that, but the silence wasn't empty. It buzzed with something unspoken, something neither of us knew how to name. When we reached my dorm, he stopped at the gate. Next time, he said, half smiling, we'll work on confidence, not compliments. I laughed weakly. Great, can't wait. He turned to go, but then he looked back, and for the briefest moment, his gaze softened, the kind of look that made the world tilt just a little. Good night, Ji-hoon. Good night, I whispered, though he was already walking away. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the memory replaying on a loop, the way his grin had faltered, the tension in his jaw, the quiet anger when someone else said his name like it belonged to them. Minwoo was always good at hiding his emotions, except when it came to me. He could joke his way out of any situation, flirt without meaning to, and charm professors into extending deadlines. To everyone else, he was untouchable, confident, effortless, golden. But with me, there were cracks, tiny fractures that only I seemed to notice, and lately, every time I tried to reach out, I brushed against something raw, something restless, something that burned too bright to be called friendship. I didn't know what to call it yet, but deep down, I already knew. Whatever this was, it wasn't just friendship anymore. The first time it happened, it was subtle, barely noticeable. We were in the library, our usual corner, him pretending to study while I actually tried to finish my paper. He leaned back in his chair, watching me. What? I asked, without looking up. Nothing, he said. You just make weird faces when you concentrate. I threw a pencil at him. He caught it mid-air, smirking. Cute, he said. I froze. He didn't. He just went right back to flipping through his notes like he hadn't dropped a bomb in the middle of my chest. That was Minwoo, always saying too much and pretending he didn't mean it. But lately, his words had started to sound heavier, more careful, more possessive. When we walked across campus together, his hand would brush mine. Accidental, he'd say. Except it wasn't. When someone stopped to talk to me, a classmate, a friend, even the barista at the cafe, I'd feel it. That subtle shift in him, his smile tightening, his voice lowering just a little too much when he joined the conversation. And every time, it left me wondering, was I imagining it? Or did Minwoo really get jealous? One evening, it became impossible to ignore. We were at a small movie night organized by our department. The lights were dim, people scattered across beanbags and blankets. I was sitting next to a guy from my literature class, Ji-hwan. He was nice, soft-spoken, the kind of person who listened when you talked. Halfway through the movie, he leaned closer to whisper a joke. I laughed, quietly, politely. That's when I felt it. Minwoo's gaze. I looked over. He was sitting on the other side of the room, but his eyes were locked on me, sharp and unreadable. For the rest of the night, he didn't say a word. When it ended, I found him outside, hands shoved deep into his pockets, staring out at the campus lights. You left early, I said. Yeah, he muttered. Movie was boring. Or maybe you just didn't like who I was sitting next to. He didn't look at me. You can sit wherever you want. Can I? I asked quietly. That made him turn. His eyes flickered. Irritation, confusion, something else. Why wouldn't you? I shrugged. You tell me. Silence. Then a soft, bitter laugh. You think I care who you talk to? But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I didn't press further, but I saw it. The jealousy. The unspoken truth hiding behind that casual smile. Days turned into weeks, and whatever was between us only got messier. He'd still tease me, still ruffle my hair, still call me idiot when I forgot to eat. But beneath it all, something had changed. The jokes landed differently now, heavier, sharper, warmer. Every insult came wrapped in something too tender to be casual. Every touch lingered just a second too long, and every time he said idiot, I could hear what he wasn't saying underneath. Mine. Minwoo had always been a creature of habits, loud ones, obvious ones. He'd whistle when he was happy, hum when he was bored, throw his hoodie at me when I ignored him. But lately, the noise had quieted. He didn't fill every silence anymore. He watched them. And I started noticing how often his silences were about me. When I came back late from study group, he'd be there, leaning on the dorm railing, pretending he'd just been out for air. Always with the same excuse. Always with the same faint shadow of worry softening his eyes. Lost track of time again, he'd say, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I'd mumble. Sorry. He'd shrug, pretending it didn't matter. Not like I was waiting. But he always was. Every single night. Some nights, I'd find him sitting outside with his guitar, not really playing, just plucking a few strings absent-mindedly. The sound was soft, familiar, and a little lonely. He'd look up when he saw me, grin like it was all a coincidence. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Liar. He always saw me. Sometimes, I'd sit beside him. We wouldn't talk much, just quiet hums and the occasional shared glance that lingered too long. The kind of silence that wasn't awkward anymore. The kind that felt like something. When I wore a new shirt, he'd notice immediately. What's this? He'd ask, tugging on the sleeve. Trying to impress someone? I'd roll my eyes. It's laundry day. He'd hum, half a smirk, half something else. Huh? Looks good on you. He'd say it like it meant nothing. But his eyes always betrayed him. And when I laughed too hard at someone else's joke, a classmate, a mutual friend, anyone, he'd go quiet. Not angry. Just still. His gaze would flicker from my smile to the person beside me, then back again, measuring, comparing, guarding something he hadn't even admitted to himself yet. It was like we were caught in a loop, circling closer and closer to something neither of us wanted to name. I felt it in the small things, how his laughter softened when it was directed at me. How he'd brush the hair out of my eyes and pretend it was nothing. How his hand would hover over my back for a second longer than needed before pulling away. And the more I noticed it, the harder it became to breathe. One evening, we were sprawled across his bed, textbooks open but long forgotten. The window was cracked open, letting in the hum of campus life, footsteps, laughter, the faint echo of music from someone's speaker. Minwoo was lying beside me, one arm under his head, the other draped across his stomach. His shirt had ridden up slightly, revealing a sliver of skin. I pretended not to notice. Hey, he said suddenly, voice low, lazy. You ever think about what it'd be like to live off campus, just on our own? I blinked. What, like roommates? He smirked. Sure, let's call it that. I laughed. You'd hate living with me. I actually clean. He rolled onto his side, eyes glinting. You think I wouldn't like it? I think you'd complain non-stop. He didn't answer. He just kept looking at me, gaze steady, unreadable. Then softly, you'd still put up with me though, right? My chest tightened. I already do. For a second, neither of us breathed. Then he laughed, breaking the tension. But his voice was just a little too shaky to hide what he felt. After that night, things only got worse. Or better. I couldn't tell. Everything he did seemed loaded now. When he brushed past me in the hallway, my skin would buzz where his arm grazed mine. When he leaned close to whisper something in class, my pulse stuttered. We were dancing on a line so thin it could break at any second, and both of us knew it. The next weekend, we went grocery shopping together. A normal thing, something we'd done 100 times before. But that day, the air between us was different. He followed me down the aisles making jokes, stealing snacks off the shelves and tossing them into the cart. At one point, I stopped to grab instant noodles, and he leaned in too close, his chin nearly resting on my shoulder. Too close, I muttered. He didn't move back. Too shy, he whispered. I turned, our faces inches apart. For one dizzying moment, the world narrowed to the space between us, the sound of his breath, the warmth radiating off him. Then he pulled away, smirking like nothing had happened. Relax, idiot. You're red. He wasn't wrong. Later that night, I found myself replaying it in my head. The closeness, the teasing, the way he said idiot, like it was the only word he trusted with my name. It was maddening. I wanted to stop thinking about him, but everything I did reminded me of him. Even when he wasn't around, he was everywhere. A few days later, it rained. Campus emptied early, the sky darkening into bruised shades of grey. I was running back to the dorm when I saw him, standing under the dorm's canopy, waiting. He was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, droplets clinging to his lashes. Were you outside this whole time? I asked, panting. He shrugged. Didn't want you walking alone. My breath caught. You could have texted. He looked away. Yeah, didn't think of it. Liar. He'd thought of it. He just didn't know how to explain why he couldn't not wait. Without thinking, I reached up and brushed the wet strands from his forehead. My fingers lingered. Too long. Too soft. His breath hitched. The world around us blurred, rain falling, streetlights glowing, the scent of something electric between us. For a second, I thought he'd kiss me, but he didn't. He just whispered, "You'll catch a cold, idiot," and walked past me into the dorm. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else could have. After that, we stopped pretending we didn't notice. Our conversations got quieter. Our glances got longer. We were orbiting the same unspoken truth, both terrified to land. I'd catch him staring sometimes, across the cafeteria, in class, even from his bed when he thought I was asleep. And each time, I wanted to ask, why? What are we doing? But the words would die in my throat. Because I already knew the answer. We were both waiting for the other to break the silence first. Then one night, it almost happened. We were studying again, or pretending to. The lamp cast a soft gold light across his desk, his face half-shadowed, his eyes distant. "You've been weird lately," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Weird? Yeah, quieter, moodier. Jealouser." He chuckled. "Jealouser isn't a word. It fits you." He looked up then, and whatever he'd been trying to hide flashed across his face quick and raw. "Maybe I am," he said quietly. I froze. "Maybe you're what?" "Jealous." The word hung there, trembling in the air. I tried to laugh, to turn it into a joke. "Of what? My grades?" but his gaze didn't waver. Of anyone who gets more of your time than I do. The world tilted. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Forget I said that. I can't, I whispered. He met my eyes then, really met them. And for the first time, there was no teasing in his voice when he said my name. Ji-hoon, just that. My name, heavy with everything we hadn't said. I didn't move. I couldn't. The clock ticked softly between us. He stood up, slowly, like he was moving through water, and brushed past me to the door. Good night, he murmured. And then he was gone, leaving me there with my heart in my throat and the echo of his voice replaying over and over in my head. That night, I realized something I'd been too afraid to admit. He didn't just care about me. He wanted me, fiercely, quietly, selfishly. And maybe I wanted him too. But we were still circling, still afraid to collide. Because we both knew, once we crossed that line, nothing would ever be the same again. Sometimes love doesn't start with confessions or kisses. Sometimes it begins with waiting, under rain-soaked dorm lights, in quiet laughter, in the spaces between words left unsaid. And when you're caught in that loop, circling someone again and again, maybe it's not fear that keeps you from speaking. Maybe it's the hope that if you circle long enough, they'll meet you halfway. Then came the night that shattered everything. A Friday, the biggest campus party of the semester. He'd insisted we go together. For fun, he said. But the moment we walked in, he disappeared into the crowd, surrounded by friends and strangers alike. I tried to follow, but he blended too easily, smiling, joking, moving, like he belonged everywhere. And for the first time, I realized how different we were. He was the sun. I was just one of the many things that orbited him. I found him later, leaning against a wall, a drink in hand, laughing with someone else, someone taller, prettier, confident. And for the first time, I felt what he must have felt watching me flirt with others. Jealousy, burning, raw. So I walked up to him. Hey, I said. He turned. His smile faltered. Ji-hoon. There was a heartbeat of silence. The air between us tightened. You having fun? I asked. Yeah, you? Trying to. He looked at me for a moment, eyes narrowing slightly. You look mad. I'm not mad, I said too quickly. He smirked. You are, I can tell. Maybe I just don't like watching my best friend flirt with strangers. Something dark flickered in his gaze. Oh, so now you know how it feels? I froze. What's that supposed to mean? He set his drink down, stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint citrus of his cologne. You keep acting like you don't notice, he said quietly, like you don't see it. Every time someone looks at you, He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Forget it. Minwoo. Do you like him? I blinked. Who? The guy from literature class. The one who makes you laugh like that. What does it matter if I do? Because it does, he snapped. Then instantly looked like he regretted it. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. I thought you wanted to help me, I said softly. You're the one who said you'd help me find a boyfriend. His jaw clenched. Yeah, well, maybe I didn't think it through. Why? He hesitated, just for a moment. Then his voice dropped, low and almost trembling. Because every time someone flirts with you, I want to kill them. The words hung between us, heavy and trembling. I stared at him, my heart hammering in my chest. Say something, he whispered. I don't know what to say. Say I'm insane, he said with a broken laugh. Say I'm jealous. Say, I already knew. I interrupted quietly. His eyes widened. I knew, Minwoo. You think I couldn't tell? The looks, the silence, the way you tense up every time someone gets too close. He didn't answer. So why didn't you say anything? I asked. Because I didn't want to lose you, he whispered. The party around us blurred into noise, laughter, music, everything fading until it was just us. I reached up, my fingers brushing his sleeve. You won't. He looked at me, then really looked. And for once there was no mask, no teasing, no hiding. Just Minwoo, vulnerable and raw. Then he leaned in. It wasn't a dramatic kiss. It wasn't even planned. It was slow, hesitant, like two people testing the edge of a secret they'd been keeping too long. When he pulled back, his voice trembled. So, what happens now? I smiled faintly. Maybe we stop pretending. That night didn't fix everything. We still argued, still misunderstood each other, still stumbled our way through whatever this was. But something had changed. The next morning, he texted, "Coffee? No flirting allowed." I sent back, "No promises." He replied with a heart emoji, his first ever. And maybe that's how love really starts. Not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with jealousy, honesty, and the courage to stop pretending. Not for me, and maybe, just maybe, not for him either. Later that night, when we were leaving, Minwoo said nothing. He just handed me my jacket and said, "You shouldn't waste time on people like that." After that, he started taking the coaching more seriously. He'd text me outfit suggestions before dates, tease me about my messages, even sit with me while I practiced how to talk casually. But something strange began happening. Every time someone flirted with me, Minwoo's energy shifted. His jokes got sharper, his mood darker. When a guy from my literature class asked me to grab coffee, Minwoo suddenly appeared in the cafe 5 minutes later. "Just passing by," he said. "Didn't know you were here." Except he sat down with us and stayed the entire time. And when the guy left, Minwoo leaned close and said, all quietly, "You can do better." "Better?" I asked, frowning. He was nice. "Too nice," he muttered, eyes on the floor. Then there were the small things, the way his hand would linger on my wrist when he adjusted my collar, the way his gaze softened when I laughed. The nights we stayed up on video call doing nothing, just breathing in silence. I didn't dare to hope, but I couldn't ignore it anymore either. One evening, I said it outright. "You don't like it when I talk to other guys, do you?" He looked up from his phone. "What?" "You get weird, jealous almost." He laughed, that forced kind of laugh that cracks around the edges. "Jealous? Of who?" "You're my best friend, Ji-hoon. I just don't want you getting hurt." But his voice trembled, and that told me more than his words ever could. The truth broke one night, sudden and raw. We were at another party. He'd been drinking, his hair messy, his laughter louder than usual. I found him leaning against a wall, talking to someone else, someone taller, handsome, confident, and for the first time, I felt what he must have felt watching me before. Jealousy, burning, ugly, real. I walked up to him. "Hey," he turned. His smile faltered. "Ji-hoon. Having fun?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked at me for a long moment. Then quietly, "Not really. I should have walked away." But instead I said, "Then stop pretending." He froze. "What?" I stepped closer. "Stop pretending you don't care. Stop pretending this is just friendship." He blinked, as if I'd struck him. Then he laughed softly, bitterly. "You don't know what you're asking for." "I think I do," I whispered. And then he kissed me. Desperate, hungry. Like years of silence finally found a voice. The music around us blurred. The world vanished. For that one moment, it was just us, two best friends, finally colliding in a place that had never belonged to either of us. When he pulled away, his eyes were wet. "I can't lose you," he said, even if I want you. And that broke me. We didn't talk for a week after that. He disappeared. I kept pretending to study, but silence became unbearable. When he finally came back, we met by the river where we used to hang out after exams. The city lights reflected on the water, cold and distant. He said, "I meant what I said that night. I want you. But I'm scared." "Of what?" I asked. "Of ruining the only thing that's ever felt right." So we made a promise. No labels, no pressure, just honesty. We'd figure it out together, even if it meant getting lost along the way. Because love wasn't always fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes it was quiet, complicated, bittersweet. And as I watched him smile, really smile this time, I realized I didn't need a boyfriend anymore. I just needed him. What did you think of this story? Was it heartbreaking, sweet, or painfully real? Comment your thoughts below and tell us what kind of ending you'd want for Ji-hoon and Minwoo. Subscribe for more BL story breakdowns, yaoi manhwa summaries, and emotional friends to lovers BL tales. Check the description for full links and more BL recommendations.